Today I'm talking to Konstantin Kuhle, head of the German FDP party's National Youth Organization. Welcome to our show, Mr. Kuhle.
Thank you. Hello.
Mr. Kuhle, you're only 28 years old, you've already completed 2 state examinations in law and are a newly elected delegate to the German Bundestag. Between the two of us, there are so many nice jobs out there. Why did it have to be politics?
Well, the good thing is I learned a different profession first. I'm a lawyer by training. I might not have worked as one for long, just for a while after my second state examination. But it's important to me to have a profession I train for. You never know. Your term in office only lasts for 4 years, and it may well all be over then. But even if it is, there will be other options for me. But for now, it's great to have this opportunity at 28. I mean, the average age of Bundestag MPs is about 50, so being able to contribute at 28 is a real gift, a great honour.
But you laid the groundwork early on. You joined Germany's Young Liberals when you were only 13. Other boys that age usually spend their time in front of a computer or at a sports club. What on earth drove you into their arms at 13?
What possessed me? Good question. I did all those things too. I checked out a sports club, gamed on my computer, tried out acting, private tutoring. I tried all sorts of things. But somehow I always felt they didn't give me a chance to talk properly about the things I was really interested in, and that I wasn't really being taken seriously as a young person. And then, thanks to internet connections that finally reached our village, I discovered politics. Because of the forums run by the FDP's Young Liberal group, I ended up joining. There you could discuss politics, and that really grabbed me. I met people there who took me seriously. They treated me as an equal, and the enthusiasm that triggered in me still hasn't faded.
After school, you went to a private university to study law. Were public universities not good enough for you?
No, there's a great public university in Göttingen right by where we lived. I think law is a subject you can study particularly well at public universities, and it means you can meet people studying other subjects, not just law.
Only law students?
What convinced me was its international focus. We had to spend 1 trimester abroad. I went to Paris, and the support system for students was a little different there. But I quickly got a sense that you could really achieve a lot if you had the necessary ambition, and that really appealed to me. But I don't think you necessarily have to study at a private university. What's much more important is really knowing what you want to study. And once you've decided on a subject, you have to figure out which university. But don't just blindly choose a private university. That's not the way to go about it.
You're very young and very career-driven. That fits well to the FDP's image of a party for high earners, one that it was actually trying to shed. What makes you so different from the Liberal Party members that were voted out of Parliament in 2013?
Well, I know that you could think that looking at my resume, but ambition and career orientation aren't necessarily negative per se. I've always made a point of trying out different things. And long before completing school, when I was 16, 17, I spent a year in South America as an exchange student in Ecuador. I lived with a family there, went to a local school and spent a lot of time learning Spanish and meeting people who had a completely different perspective on life. I think that taught me to be a bit more relaxed about the whole question of being just career-oriented or not. It was an exciting time, just like my time in France was, so I can't really accept that criticism because I have always been aware of life outside of Germany and even Europe. And I think this combination of I'm interested in foreign cultures, I'm interested in foreign languages on the one hand, as well as an understanding for the way economics work on the other, is what has always defined the FDP party. But I also don't think you can judge a person's character just by their party membership. I think that's a stretch.
Too much labelling?
Absolutely.
I read online that the FDP's political guiding principle is freedom whatever the circumstances. Does that mean freedom in the face of state opposition?
Pretty early on, I began to ask myself, why the Liberal Party? Why the FDP? And when you trace it back, of course, it's because of what the Liberals wrested from the state bit by bit in the 19th century. Freedom of opinion, freedom of the press. Taking that sentiment and transferring it to today's world, the question arises, how much video surveillance, how much telecommunication surveillance is acceptable in an age when we spend so much time online? That is an important point to me when it comes to informational self-determination, because if you feel like you're being watched 24/7, you will change your behavior without even noticing it. And that's not what self-determination is supposed to mean. That's why, yes, in the worst case, informational self-determination must also be asserted in the face of state opposition. Take major corporations, think of tax evasion. Or social networks. They've created a public space that has practically replaced real public life. Then autonomy must also be defended against the private sector.
That all sounds great, but it's difficult to do. Take climate change, which is a bone of contention for the new German government coalition talks. There, the slogan, freedom whatever the circumstances, isn't going to get you very far, especially when it comes to voluntary commitments. Nothing's happened on the Paris Agreement. Disappointing, isn't it? What now?
It's disappointing that the debate on this issue is being argued very narrowly. Everyone agreed to the climate goals in Paris, and rightly so. But anyone who takes a different approach to measures is made out to be the bad guy. I don't think it's that simple. Above all, we need to understand that in regions like the one I'm from, rural Lower Saxony, other measures are needed than in the cities.
Do measures include state intervening?
Yes, of course. It'd be much too easy to say our climate policies could be summarized as freedom whatever the circumstances. That would be stopping short of the mark. We have a program for climate policies. I honestly have to admit I wish the FDP would take this issue a bit further. I sometimes feel the FDP is a bit too silent on environmental politics and in how they communicate to the public. I hope that the coalition talks will help us to see that the environment can also be an issue for a Liberal Party, though I wouldn't say it's my favorite issue. I'm more interested in domestic and legal affairs as well as European politics, but the FDP still needs to drill deeper into the subject of climate policies, definitely.
Either way, freedom or state, we are wrecking our planet, Mr. Kuhle. Isn't it finally time to fix a date to phase out combustion engines?
We're happy to talk about dates, but this date must take into consideration that there's a difference between rural and urban areas, and that it makes a difference whether this date is set by the state or if engineers who understand the technology much better, for example, than I do, say, this is the date we want. We also need to consider that in constituencies like mine, there are communities for whom it makes a difference if I say e-mobility or if I say the combustion engine will be allowed here for a transitional period. It's great that we can talk with the Green Party about how long this transition period might last, and the environment definitely needs to be factored in, by us too.
The
Green Party has just taken its demand for a fixed target off the table. What's your response?
I respect that and think it's a great concession from the Green Party. I would want my own party and the party leadership to respond to this concession with a concession of their own. But that's all I can say about it, because I'm not part of the actual negotiations on the environment, so I'm not in the loop. But I find it incredibly decent of the Green Party to meet us halfway like that. And I hope that we can respond in kind and not gloat, like the CSU did, saying, oh, well, it was an idiotic demand in the first place. I just can't understand why the CSU did that. That's not how you reach an agreement.
You hinted at it earlier, freedom or state. Do you think paying taxes is a good thing?
Well, when you look at your pay slip or do your tax declaration, then your first thought usually is, wow, that's a lot. But when you look at how the country works and how we want a functioning police force and a free education system with universal basic services, then sure, taxes are a part of that. The question is, how high are the taxes? What incentives do these taxes provide, for example, for research or for education? Haven't we got an awful lot of people paying over 50% of what they earn in taxes and social security contributions? A system in which people who work very hard have to pay so much. And that's why we've worked out changes we want to make in tax policies. The Liberal Party isn't against taxes, but we need to talk about the way they are structured.
Some of your supporters would disagree. Do you accept the fact that there are lots of corporations and very rich people who find legal loopholes to cut their taxes right down?
When it comes to major corporations evading taxes, I agree they shouldn't be able to earn massive amounts of money here and then avoid financing the common good. There are also some interesting models proposed by environmentalists.
Hang on, that's nicely said, but there's nothing you can do if Malta, Ireland, the Netherlands and Luxembourg keep saying no.
Well, we have to have a serious talk about the advantages these states get from the free movement of capital, for example. They have advantages and operate their business model on the basis that capital, that they want to keep there, can be transferred anywhere to be invested, and that advantage has to be linked to certain issues, and that's where we have to talk about taxes. I think a lot of what Emmanuel Macron suggested for the European Union is worth considering. Why doesn't Germany enter into negotiations with France on tax policies? I think that'd be a good thing. His initiative shows that it is possible to consider new ideas in Europe. So maybe this new window to have this conversation with France is an opportunity to change how major corporations evade taxes.
Mr. Kuhle, there are so many things to talk about, but I'm afraid our time is up. So, to close our interview, we now come to our open sentences and ask you to finish them for us. What I like about Horst Seehofer is
when he actually sticks to his positions.
What I don't like about the Green Party is
how they gloated when the FDP lost all its seats in Parliament in 2013.
SPD parliamentary group leader Andrea Nahles is
an interesting person I would love to have a coffee with sometime, as long as she doesn't smack me one afterwards.
In 20 years I will be
happy, hopefully.
Konstantin Kuhle, thank you very much.
Thank you.